What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. Today's episode is all about the face that runs the place, the champ that runs the camp, the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. And a lot of us have followed his career since even the TNA days, but it's still crazy to us that he even had a career in the WWE. A career that, as of the recording of this video, has spanned 8 years already, with multiple WWE Championship reigns, multiple United States Championship reigns, an Intercontinental Championship reign, and even winning the Tag Team Championship at WrestleMania 37, making him a Grand Slam champion. A career that definitely defines the word Hall of Fame. What if we live in a world where maybe AJ Styles is still possibly in TNA wrestling? So that's going to be the discussion of today's episode. It's what if AJ Styles didn't leave TNA wrestling in 2014? And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. And this episode will be based off of the 5 big points, so let's kick off with that very first one, which that very first point is that I think AJ Styles wouldn't have lost the TNA World Championship in 2013. For those that definitely know, TNA did pre-record a lot of their stuff, and although we did see on TV that AJ Styles left in 2014, as terms to the actual taping, it happened in December of 2013. And of course, near the end of AJ Styles' career in TNA, he was in a storyline involving Dixie Carter. And at this point, TNA were basically making their own watered-down copy of WWE storylines. More specifically, with this storyline, it was taking after CM Punk's Summer of Punk storyline back in 2011. AJ Styles would win the TNA World Championship at Bound for Glory 2013 against Bully Ray after winning the Bound for Glory series, and Dixie Carter would announce that due to a contract dispute that she would strip AJ Styles of the TNA World Championship. This led to Magnus becoming the champion, but AJ Styles eventually making a return, claiming that he is the world champion, which led to a match to unify the championships, which led to Magnus winning because AJ Styles chose not to re-sign his contract. Now, I think had AJ Styles not left TNA in 2014, that this storyline would definitely continue, where we do see some of those elements of AJ Styles even saying that he's going to defend the championship in other promotions, which he actually did with the partnership with Wrestle One in Japan. AJ Styles probably only shows up once in a blue moon, but still the TNA World Champion, where most likely the storyline could culminate at Bound for Glory in 2014, which so happened to have taken place at Korakuen Hall in Japan with the partnership with Wrestle One. Could have still done a storyline where they crowned a new champion, but then maybe AJ Styles actually shows up much later, like let's say Lockdown or Slammiversary that year, to claim that he is the true TNA World Champion, and that we would have had a unification match at the Bound for Glory event as the main event. And had the storyline also happened, that I don't think the storyline involving Eric Young winning the World Championship would have happened, especially because at that specific time they did that storyline, it was clearly a watered down copy of the bearded underdog winning the World Championship, which is what WWE were doing with Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30. My second point I'm bringing up, if AJ Styles didn't leave TNA, is that I think he would have been in the Hall of Fame either in 2014 or 2015. Now, the majority of the time that you see the WWE Hall of Fame, it's based off of wrestlers that have already retired, but in TNA's sake, they were actually inducting people that were still on the roster. Of course, the first year of the Hall of Fame in 2012, they had inducted Sting, who did not leave TNA until 2014, and then in 2013, they had inducted Kurt Angle, who had been there for so many years prior to that, plus he still wrestled for at least another 3 years in the promotion. And because you have AJ Styles, who was literally there since day one in 2002, that I think he would have been inducted either 2014 or 2015, and I say that because maybe they don't want to induct him during this huge storyline involving Dixie Carter. Point number 3 of if AJ Styles didn't leave TNA wrestling in 2014, he probably would have left near 2016. Now, originally when preparing for this video, I wanted to specifically make this, what if AJ Styles never left TNA? But of course, I feel like that's not realistic. I see a world where they probably could have reached a deal for AJ Styles to re-sign in 2014, but I think when you get to 2016, the financial troubles just keep plummeting down for TNA, especially when you get to the situation with Dixie Carter and Billy Corgan, that was kind of the final straw to where at that point they just could not re-sign AJ Styles. And then of course you see guys like Bobby Roode and Eric Young and even Samoa Joe gone at this point and signing with NXT, and even Kurt Angle would leave TNA because the money just wasn't there anymore. And at that point, AJ Styles would leave TNA because the money just wasn't there and he wouldn't be able to provide for his family at that particular point. Point number 4 I wanted to bring up is that I think he would have signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2016. Of course, in the real timeline in 2016, AJ Styles had signed with the WWE and had debuted at the Royal Rumble event. However, I think the reason that AJ Styles, of course, would have been signed to WWE at that point is because of them noticing what he was doing at New Japan Pro Wrestling from 2014 to 2016. So I think at this particular point is where AJ Styles would officially sign with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And the thing that makes me wonder about this whole thing is the status of the Bullet Club. Do the Bullet Club still exist at this point, considering that I feel like AJ Styles was a huge focal point of the Bullet Club and helping them bring themselves to mainstream popularity, even to the point where we're seeing merchandise at places like Hot Topic. So I don't know if delaying the success of the Bullet Club by a couple of years would have still had the same effect as it did in 2014. So who knows where the Bullet Club would be today, and who knows if the Bullet Club would have even still been around by the time AJ Styles would have signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2016. And it's unknown of what would go on with the landscape of the WWE in 2016, besides maybe the fact that it was talked about that Chris Jericho was scheduled to wrestle Dean Ambrose in a match at WrestleMania 32, but that was changed once AJ Styles had signed with WWE, which would also leave Brock Lesnar without an opponent because he did wrestle Dean Ambrose in the real timeline, which makes me think that maybe we would have gotten the rematch of Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania 32, which was discussed about in the rumor mill. And now point number 5 I wanted to bring up is what happens with AJ Styles after he completes his contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, in the real timeline, when he signed with New Japan in 2014, it had finished in 2016 and he had signed with WWE. But now that he is signed in this particular timeline in 2016 and probably last at least 2 to 3 years, where exactly would he end up? Would he still go to WWE like we've seen in the real timeline, or does he end up actually going somewhere else? Which I do have 2 alternate timelines to where he could possibly go. I would say that if his contract does end in 2018, that there is a huge chance that he's getting signed to WWE. At this particular point, there isn't really any competition for WWE, especially TNA with their financial issues, and how at this particular point, I believe they were just being bought out by Anthem Sports and kind of starting to rebuild themselves back up, but still not to a point where I believe they could afford a contract for AJ Styles. And the only scenario I could think of that ties into possibly getting right on track to what actually happened in the real timeline is maybe if AJ Styles signed with WWE in 2018, he would debut in the 2018 Royal Rumble match, but not only would he debut in that match, he would actually win the 2018 Royal Rumble. And once he wins the Royal Rumble, he would challenge for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 34, and I think the champion at this particular time would be none other than John Cena. In the real timeline near the end of 2017, we had seen that Jinder Mahal had dropped the WWE Championship to AJ Styles when originally it was booked that Jinder Mahal was going to face Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. However, some reports were stating that Brock Lesnar didn't want to work with Jinder Mahal, hence why we got AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. But with AJ Styles not being in WWE at this particular time in 2017 with this timeline, who is a perfect fit that could work with Brock Lesnar? And I think that would be John Cena, since he was still on that semi-full-time schedule. And I think we could be in a world where John Cena wins the WWE Championship, has the match with Lesnar, continues to have the multiple matches he would have had to defend it before dropping it to AJ Styles at WrestleMania 34, and that would have been the first time we've seen them in the ring instead of Money in the Bank 2016. And that would easily go right on the track of the real timeline where AJ Styles did defend the WWE Championship throughout the majority of 2018, which led to him dropping to Daniel Bryan right before Survivor Series that year. But then I'm making a scenario of what would happen if it was an extra year and that his contract ended in 2019, which I think would have been likely that he signs with All Elite Wrestling, especially because All Elite Wrestling was just beginning. You have a huge substantial amount of money because it's being run by the Khan family, one of the richest families in the world. And so had the contract ended in 2019 with New Japan Pro Wrestling, this would have also most likely meant that AJ Styles could have worked the All In event in Chicago in September of 2018. And having a performance at that event would have led to the formation of All Elite Wrestling still, and most likely would have contacted AJ Styles to work for AEW. That would be a huge substantial amount of money given to him by working also less dates than WWE would have given him. And if AJ Styles would have worked at All Elite Wrestling in 2019, I think that he would have been AEW World Champion. It probably was inevitable that Chris Jericho was locked in to become the first AEW World Champion, and maybe instead of Jon Moxley, it would have been AJ Styles to become the second AEW World Champion. And with AJ Styles signing with AEW at this particular point, he would have been able to work the first Double or Nothing event, Fyter Fest, All Out, done all those big banger events that kicked off AEW. It would have been crazy to see AJ Styles with some more first time ever matches potentially in this case, especially having Chris Jericho versus AJ Styles much later than we did in 2016 in the real timeline for WWE.